A Very Long Engagement just turned 15 years old, but it's available to watch right now on YouTube Movies or Prime Video, or at my house where there are 3 copies of it. It's a much less widely known film than director Jean-Pierre Jeunet's previous film, Amelie, but just like Amelie, it stars Audrey Tautou and Dominique Pinon. We also have Marion Cotillard before she became super famous with Inception and La Vie en Rose, as well as a surprising appearance from an American superstar. With all that behind it, how does A Very Long Engagement fare against its more famous sister film, and more importantly, is it worth watching 15 years on? Despite the film's age, this is a spoiler-free review of the 2004 French film A Very Long Engagement, or Un long dimanche de fiançailles, a long Sunday of engagement. Hi guys, and welcome to the Reykjavik Review, where I discuss foreign TV series and films such as this one. So if that sounds like something you'd like to see more of, make sure you subscribe for new foreign film and series reviews every Friday in the States and Europe. Just before we look at this amazing film, if you're wondering why it's another audio-only review, 2 reasons. One is that I'm doing my utmost to stick to that schedule that I just named, even when I'm totally snowed under, and the other is that, trust me, you'd much rather look at clips from this film than my face, because visually, this film is nothing short of stunning. Before I started rewatching this film just this week, it had been a few years since I'd seen it, and I thought that having learned more about film since then, I'd probably feel a little bit let down, but I have not been let down at all. In fact, I now notice even more masterful use of the camera than I ever had before. Director of photography Bruno Del Bonel also lensed Amelie and has since gone on to work with Tim Burton and the Coen brothers, but his working relationship with Jean-Pierre Jeunet has, in my opinion, yielded the best looking scenes of his career. Jean-Pierre Jeunet is a huge fan of Sergio Leone, as am I, not a director that comes straight to mind when you think of quirky French comedies, or indeed First World War love stories such as this one is. But Jean-Pierre's French take on Leone's trademark look is truly gorgeous, and I kid you not, even if you have no word of French, you can still watch this film sans subtitles. As I mentioned, this film is set in and after World War I, where in the Battle of the Somme, Mathilde's fiancé Manek, played by Gaspard Ulliel, seems to have died like many others, but Mathilde is not quite convinced. We see then numerous recounts of the last known sightings of Manek as Mathilde tries to find everyone who might know anything about this, and that brings me to the chronology. In 2004, the chronology of this film was extremely confusing to me, because we also have a third timeline that I'll come back to in a little while, and an additional story with Marion Cotillard's character. But since this film was released, we've seen films like The Prestige and Tinker Tailor Soldier Spy. In short, cinema chronology has leveled up, and it's unlikely that you'll find A Very Long Engagement particularly confusing if you watch it today, but it does hold up in terms of narrative interest. In other words, I think this film's chronology was somewhat ahead of its time, because just like The Prestige, the scenes are not placed like that just to seem cleverer than they really are. This is an extremely carefully plotted and well-paced film. It's also unusual in that most films give us their best either at the start or at the very end. With A Very Long Engagement, in my opinion at least, the best scenes are right in the middle when we look back at the story of Manek and Mathilde falling in love. Have you seen that meme that says that Disney's Up tells a better love story in 8 minutes than Twilight did in 3 movies? Well, I see your Up, and I, wait for it, raise you A Very Long Engagement. 7 minutes that brings me to tears, I am not kidding you, every single time. I watched it a few years ago in a room full of friends, no exception that time either. Some of this might have to do with the quality of the music, which the composer delivers in spades. If it sounds strange to you that A Very Long Engagement is a beautifully shot First World War romantic mystery thriller from the director of Amelie, it is strange. There are a lot of somewhat contradictory genres happening here, but it's all very delicately held together with an extremely fine touch from Angelo Badalamenti. On top of that, the performances are impeccable, Audrey Tautou is in more than half of the scenes and she is stunning. Mathilde somehow wins our hearts despite actually being stubborn and sometimes rude to those around her.
Merci Bénédicte. Bon. Je vous laisse.
The supporting cast does a great job too, and I still remember watching this in the cinema in 2004 and more than halfway through the film thinking, is that Jodie Foster? It is Jodie Foster, in something halfway between a cameo and a supporting role, speaking excellent French at that. Her surprise role in this film is one of my favourite pieces of cinema trivia, particularly Jean-Pierre's improvised nod to Panic Room, and then consider also that Manek, Gaspard Ulliel, went on to star as a young Hannibal Lecter. Speaking of Gaspard, I think his performance in this film may actually be the best. He hasn't got very much screen time to win our hearts, but it's paramount that he does, since we're going to spend the entire film looking for him, and Gaspard hits every note. To me, this is one of those performances that stands out so greatly in an otherwise average career that it seems as though Gaspard's purpose on Earth was to be in this film. Now, if all of this is sounding too good to be true, there are some valid criticisms of A Very Long Engagement that I do want to address. The most striking is that Jean-Pierre Jeunet's quirkiness, his way of introducing characters with voiceover and giving them little oddities to occasionally reference throughout the film, is a little bit out of place here. Some people would defend it as comic relief from all the death in this film, but personally I would prefer for that comic relief to appear more naturally, which at times it does, but those erroneous moments are just not quite my cup of tea in this setting, but thankfully they are few and far between. And another tiny personal criticism of mine is that the way one single moment happens just doesn't feel quite as strong as the rest of the film. This film is not at all dull in its delivery of what amounts to a lot of information, but for one very short moment that just doesn't quite get the quality of delivery that it deserves. But that's everything I have for criticisms. The attention to detail in set and props and costume design is insane. The making of documentary reveals that they spent almost half of their shooting budget on a single shot, a recreation of Paris in 1920. And having seen it what must be 11 or 12 times now, I notice something new in the details of the scenes every time. And like I said, I also cry my eyes out every time, because ultimately it's the mood, the soul of this film that makes it feel so special. You'll not find another film, be it romantic, war or otherwise, that makes you feel like this film does. I have seen this film being compared with The Notebook. Sorry, but The Notebook does not hold a candle to A Very Long Engagement. It's like Samuel L. Jackson said, ain't no ballpark either. I think a fairer comparison can be made between this and Interstellar. And if you're one of those people who hates Interstellar, then you probably won't like this film either, because both of them were made for people with souls. So as we move into the 20s, yes, the 2020s, if you haven't seen A Very Long Engagement, then it needs to go straight to the top of your watch list. It's somewhere in my top 20 films, and it's probably my very favourite French film. Speaking of French, if you'd like to be able to understand this or any other foreign film without subtitles, then head over to my second channel, Days of French and Swedish, where I share my progress and techniques for learning languages. Guys, make sure to let me know what you thought of this film or my review of it in the comments. I'll be back in a week with a new one, and in the meantime I'll upload some older ones. I hope you enjoyed this. Thanks so much for watching. See you next time.